Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or replaced, this one's for you. Let's begin. There were champagne glasses clinking in the next room when I got the text that changed everything. It was a Saturday night. I was in the coat room of a house I had no business being in. Some sprawling estate in Windermere, full of politicians' kids and people with last names that sound like law firms. I was working, not as a guest, no. I was managing valet coordination through an app I'd been quietly building for 2 years. Hustling, sweating, counting tips. That's when it came through. I didn't want to tell you like this, but it's serious. I'm with Davis now. Please don't make a scene. No, I'm sorry. No explanation. Just a digital grenade thrown into my pocket while I was folding someone's mink coat. She was there that night too. Upstairs. With him. Davis. Of course it was Davis. You don't just compete with a guy like that, you orbit him. He's the type who walks into a room and gravity shifts. Ivy League smile. Cufflinks with his initials. Her parents loved him before they even met him. And me? I was just the guy they tolerated because he made their daughter laugh when she was sad. For years. Gone. Not even a face-to-face conversation. Not even a call. Just a text sandwiched between a champagne spill and a complaint about the wait time for an Uber Black. I walked out without a word. Didn't even collect the final tips. I drove straight to the all-night grocery store. Bought a frozen pizza, a 6-pack of root beer, and a blank notebook. That night, I wrote one sentence on the first page. Build something so undeniable, they'll choke on regret. And I did. But this story isn't about revenge. It's about what happens when someone trades you for a shinier version of life, and then realizes too late that gold can't hold them when it all goes cold. Wait till you hear what happened when she came back. I didn't sleep that night. My body shut down, but my brain kept playing loops of her. Laughing in our kitchen, wearing my hoodie, whispering promises she clearly didn't mean. But mixed with that pain was something else. Rage? No, not quite. It was sharper, like realization. I'd been building my future like a slow-burning fire, and she walked away before the flame hit its full glow. I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to beg. But I also wasn't going to let the version of me she left behind be the one that stayed. That's where it really began. I buried myself in the app I'd been quietly coding, Valet Link. It wasn't just a scheduling system anymore. I rewrote the UI from scratch, added predictive mapping, partnered with 3 more venues. I pitched it to hotel managers, event planners, car rental chains, anyone who'd listen. Most said no. One said maybe, and that maybe turned into my first serious contract. I still remember signing the agreement with trembling hands, using a pen I'd borrowed from a receptionist who barely looked at me. That deal paid for my first real office space. Just a windowless closet behind a dry cleaner's shop, but it was mine, and I worked every night until 3 a.m. With nothing but caffeine, silence, and a calendar full of ignored texts from people asking why I disappeared. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell mutual friends. But somehow she found out anyway. A month after that contract, I got a DM from her friend Becca. She saw the article in the local business journal. You looked good. She's confused. Confused? That word hit harder than I expected. Like I was some puzzle she didn't finish before switching games. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Then came the call. Blocked number. I almost ignored it. But something in me said, let her speak. Marshall? Her voice cracked. I didn't know who you were becoming. I thought Davis was safer. Safe. That's what she chose over me. But what she didn't know, I wasn't finished becoming. She called me 3 more times that week. I didn't answer. There's something deeply satisfying about knowing the person who once discarded you is now sitting in silence, wondering why you won't speak. It's not revenge, really. It's more like closure in reverse. The power shifted, and I didn't even have to raise my voice. But curiosity's a disease, and eventually I picked up, just to hear what kind of story she'd try to sell me. Her voice was softer this time, almost unsure. She said things like, I didn't know how much you were working on, and I thought Davis would understand me, but he doesn't. I kept my responses short, quiet, uninterested. The more indifferent I became, the more frantic she sounded. She asked if we could meet. I told her I was busy. That wasn't a lie. My second contract came through that Friday, one of the biggest private country clubs in the state. I remember staring at the email, blinking like I didn't believe it was real. The numbers were higher than anything I'd ever touched. I should have celebrated, but I felt something colder instead: validation. Not joy, not pride, just the strange, still realization that I'd become exactly the kind of man her parents always wanted for her, without needing any of them to get there. She showed up outside my office the following Monday. I have no idea how she found the address. She wore this beige coat I used to compliment, back when I was naive enough to think style mattered more than loyalty. She stood there for a long time before knocking. When I opened the door, she blinked like she expected someone else. Maybe a mess. Maybe a man still mourning her. Instead, she saw someone who had already outgrown her ghost. "Marshall," she said, tears in her voice. "I made a mistake." And right then, in that tiny hallway that still smelled like paint thinner and printer toner, I didn't feel anything at all. Not hate, not hurt, just clarity. She was here because what I'd become was finally visible. But what she didn't understand was, I wasn't building it for her anymore. I didn't invite her in. Not because I wanted to be cold, but because it wasn't her place anymore. The space smelled of fresh ambition and late nights, not of memories and forgiveness. She stood there, half shivering despite the sun overhead, clutching her designer bag like it could shield her from the fact that I wasn't melting in her presence. The look in her eyes was part nostalgia, part disbelief, like she expected to find some version of the man she left behind, waiting in a corner with wilted hope. But I wasn't that man anymore, and she knew it. "You look different," she finally said. "I am," I replied. "Nothing more." She asked if we could grab coffee sometime just to talk. Said she had questions. Said she missed the simplicity of us. I almost laughed. Simplicity? There was nothing simple about rebuilding myself from the dust she left behind. But I nodded. Not to give her what she wanted, but because I wanted to see where this would go. I needed to hear her say it. I wanted her to confess what she thought I hadn't already figured out. We met the next day at this little cafe near the waterfront. It used to be one of our spots. She noticed that immediately and tried to use it. "Remember the time it rained so hard we had to wait here for hours?" I didn't respond. I just waited. Finally, after minutes of nervous glances and small talk that didn't land, she sighed and said it. "Davis and I broke up." I didn't flinch. She went on, painting him as cold, absent, too focused on profit margins to understand her soul. The irony almost choked me. That's exactly what her parents used to say about me. That I wasn't forward-thinking enough. That I wasn't aiming high. And now, here she was, sitting across from the man who had become everything she once left behind. Then came the question I knew was coming. The one that made my stomach knot even though I was ready for it. Is there someone else? There was, but it wasn't just another woman. It was peace. And she had no idea how impossible it would be to compete with that. The word peace didn't land the way I expected. She blinked twice, tilted her head slightly, and gave me this awkward, uncertain smile, like I had just told a joke she didn't quite understand. But I didn't smile back. I wasn't trying to be poetic. I was telling her, as clearly as I could, that I had nothing left to offer her. She had taken what little hope I carried and handed it to someone else, and now she wanted to sit across from me like that never happened. Like heartbreak could be undone with nostalgia and soft tones. She stirred her coffee too long. Her fingers trembled. That's when I realized. She thought she could win me back. Not because she loved me, but because she couldn't stand that I was fine without her. That I had built something solid, something undeniable, and she had no access to it anymore. That terrified her. She started crying halfway through her second sentence about missing the real connection we had. And I just sat there, still. I didn't reach for her hand. I didn't offer a napkin. I'd been there, on that side of pain, and no one handed me a thing. I found my way out on my own. Finally, she asked what I was thinking. I told her the truth. I spent months imagining this conversation. I thought I'd feel victorious. But honestly, I feel like I outgrew the fight. She went quiet. I watched her eyes dart to the window, to the cars passing by, to anything but me. It was the first time I'd ever seen her unable to control a room. She used to command every space she entered. Now, she sat shrinking in a cafe chair, unable to hold my gaze. I didn't need to say anything else. The silence was doing all the work. It was the kind of silence she couldn't fill with charm, or excuses, or beautiful distractions. This was the silence of someone who had healed. She sniffled, dabbed her eyes, and whispered, "So that's it." I nodded. And then, for the first time in years, I stood up before she did, and walked away without looking back. 3 days after the cafe, she showed up at my doorstep. No warning, no message beforehand. Just her, standing in the rain like some tragic scene from a movie she probably thought she was still the star of. I didn't rush to open the door. I watched her through the peephole, uncertain what I even owed her at this point. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. What I felt was that sharp divide between the past and the present. And on the other side of that door, I was living in the present now, finally. When I cracked it open, her eyes lit up. For a second, I saw the old version of her. The one who knew how to smile with timing and precision, the one who used to hold my face in her hands like I was something fragile and valuable. But all that faded the moment another voice called from inside the house. "Hey babe, should I start the water boiling?" It was Rowan. She had no idea who Rowan was, but she heard the word babe, and I watched her entire posture crumble. Rowan is everything Carly never was. Grounded, kind, a little sarcastic in the best way. She never cared about my income, my car, or my backstory. We met through a logistics contract. She was consulting on operational efficiency. What started as dry business talk turned into late-night ramen and arguments about jazz versus indie folk. She never tried to fix me. She never ran. Carly looked past me into the house like she had the right to see inside. I stepped out and pulled the door gently behind me. She asked who the woman was, and I told her the truth. She's someone who believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. And she doesn't need me to prove anything to her. Carly's lips parted like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. I think that's when it really hit her, that she wasn't the main character anymore. She asked if we could have a moment. I said no, not out of cruelty, just because that moment had expired long ago. She turned to walk away, slowly. Every step seemed heavier than the last. And all I could think was, this time she was the one left out in the cold. A week passed, then another. I figured she'd disappear quietly, the way she used to leave parties early when she wasn't getting the attention she wanted. But Carly doesn't know how to lose, at least not gracefully. So when the email landed in my inbox, subject line, "One last conversation," I wasn't surprised. I didn't answer. She followed it up with a voice message. 34 seconds of silence, broken only by a whisper at the end. "I never meant to hurt you." That sentence used to mean something to me. Now it felt like a line from a bad script she'd been rehearsing for when regret inevitably caught up. And it had. Regret was sitting next to her now, sleeping in the bed she once called victory. Davis was gone. Some messy breakup that played out like a corporate negotiation. She didn't say much about it, but I'd heard things through the grapevine. Something about him relocating. Something about her being left with a condo she couldn't afford and a life that didn't come with backup plans. She wasn't reaching out to apologize. She was trying to reframe it all. Trying to convince me that we'd both grown and maybe, just maybe, we were meant to find each other again, just with better timing. I almost laughed when I read that, as if the issue had been a clock, not a choice. She hadn't chosen me when it mattered. And that's all the timing I ever needed to remember. I forwarded the message to a folder I never open. And then I did something I didn't expect. I blocked her. Not out of bitterness, but because I realized she was trying to rewrite a story that was already closed. I wasn't a character in her narrative anymore. I wasn't a footnote to her new regrets. I was the author now, and this chapter wasn't about her anymore. That night, I sat on the balcony with Rowan. She handed me a mug of tea and asked how my day was. I smiled and said, "Peaceful." And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. Months passed without a single thought of her. Not in the mornings. Not during meetings. Not even when I walked past places that used to trigger old memories like landmines. It was like my life had gone through a quiet reboot. No fireworks. No dramatic moment of triumph. Just calm. Like waking up one day and realizing the storm finally moved on. That's how healing really works. It's not loud. It's not cinematic. It's quiet, steady, and suddenly, it's just there. Rowan and I kept growing together. She wasn't the rebound. She was the reward I didn't know I was working toward. She challenged me, supported me, and never once asked for more than I could give. We didn't talk about the past much. She didn't need the details. She saw me for who I was now. Not the man I used to be when I was trying to earn love by becoming small. Last week, something happened that really made it feel full circle. I was invited to speak on a panel for local tech startups. The event was hosted at the exact same venue where Carly's parents once introduced her to Davis. As I walked in, I caught my reflection in the glass. Same eyes, same face, but something had changed that even I could see. I was standing taller, not just physically but emotionally. I wasn't proving anything anymore. I was just living it. After the panel, I walked out to my car, and there she was, Carly, standing on the curb, alone, arms crossed. She didn't say a word, just looked at me with a tight smile. I nodded politely, then got in my car. As I drove off, I didn't feel anything. No bitterness, no triumph, just peace. Because real closure isn't her seeing me win. It's me not needing her to see it at all. Thank you for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever had a moment in life where you realized you didn't need revenge to feel whole, share it in the comments. What did you walk away from that made space for something better? Don't forget to subscribe, and if this story hit home, drop a like and share your own moment of quiet victory.